Massive news in today's video, so as always, I'll put the timestamps in the description down below. Just a quick update on Eric Young, because we have been talking about Eric Young possibly being back in the company. You know, Impact Wrestling, actually killed him off the TV show. It was quite interesting stuff. We've kind of speculated at this point in time he was supposed to be in WWE, but there was never really a confirmation that he actually was. Well, now Fightful has actually come out with the confirmation. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select had actually reported that WWE did in fact rehire Eric Young in November of 2022. However, he obviously hasn't made his return to television at this time. Now, keep in mind, we've been talking about this for months and months, and we were talking about the WWE draft and how Triple H could, he said every single superstar is expected back or is expected to be involved in the draft. Obviously, I think there's some significance there behind the surprise elements, but now Fightful says Young was recruited back in a wrestling capacity in 2022 by Triple H's new regime, just a few months after taking over. They were told by October, Impact Wrestling was made aware that Eric Young would be finishing up with the company. So now where does this actually leave Eric Young in regards to his return? And guys, as you listen to this whole video, things will start making sense. A lot of things, when you start applying logic to it, will make sense here. But Eric Young being back in an official capacity, we got the Judgment Day, we got the Bloodline, we got Maximum Male Models, we got Hit Row. It's obvious to me that WWE has so many factions, and they're starting to build factions. You have to wonder if Eric Young is the one who will be part of Sanity going forward. And again, this is a really big deal considering the fact that they have been teasing a lot of stuff with Nikki Cross throughout the last few months. And it would make a lot of sense for Sanity to return, especially if you can get all of the OG members back. Now, Eric Young being in WWE in an official wrestling capacity is great news. I think when you look at some of these different groups, if you really want to push Sanity, there could be something really great there, especially when you consider LWO also has Zelina Vega. You can have Nikki Cross and Selena work together. But my point that I'm making is there is tons of opportunity here, and Eric Young being back in the company could be very good for that. Now, also, just want to throw this out there, if I haven't already made this a big deal, Eric Young is a true veteran of the business. There are other people from TNA that are working in WWE, such as Jeremy Borash, or maybe even Joseph Park, aka Abyss, and those guys have been doing a lot of stuff for WWE in the background. So if Eric Young at some point does want to retire, I do believe that there could be a good opportunity for him to work as a trainer, as a coach in the Performance Center, or even a producer like some of the others that are involved. So obviously I would like to see Eric Young be a wrestler in WWE, and according to Fightful Select, that does appear to be the case. But when it comes to Eric Young, I do think there is a lot of things that he can do with WWE as they move forward. Now, speaking of new groups, what about some existing groups? And this is where things get interesting with Damage Control, because the Twitter account Worked Wrestling put out a very good tweet. And we have been talking about the fall of Damage Control lately, but now this news right here definitely solidifies what we all have been speculating and seen with our eyes. Worked Wrestling posted a photo of Bianca Belair versus Io Sky, which is a match that is scheduled for Monday Night Raw on April 10, 2023. Worked Wrestling says Bianca Belair is scheduled to face off tonight against Io Sky. It won't be long before we start to see the cracks form in Damage Control. Now, we have been seeing Bayley really create tons of speculation. And of course, the IWC is running with it. They see the sad tweet and they just think Bayley is done. Bayley is unhappy, especially when you consider all of the things that have been said about WWE's creative process. And look, Bayley breaking away from Damage Control at this point, WWE doesn't believe in it. It's very clear. I will always believe that Damage Control was underutilized, and whether that's Triple H's fault or Vince McMahon's fault, I don't really care whose fault it is. To me, it was obvious that Damage Control should have been something so much bigger and better. Now, with that being said, I really do have high hopes for Dakota Kai, and I really do have high hopes for Io Sky. And as we look to hopefully improve the women's division, those are two great athletes, two great superstars who I think they understand the entertainment side as well as the wrestling side of things. Io Sky and Dakota Kai breaking off from Damage Control, all doing their own thing, would be highly beneficial, especially with Bayley. Now, I have to wonder if WWE is potentially planning a big babyface run for Bayley, or maybe if Bayley is going to go heel and Dakota Kai and Io Sky will be big babyfaces. However they choose to go about it is very intriguing to me, but there is one thing I want to point out, because the one thing I've been very critical of WWE, regardless of who's booking the show, is those women's tag titles. And I feel like Io Sky and Dakota Kai actually turning on Bayley should be the move. If I was booking this specifically, I would keep them as a tag team. For right now, it doesn't appear that WWE has Io Sky and Dakota Kai going into like this major singles run to be groomed as the next champion. So at this point, why not keep them as a women's tag team and continue to build that division? Because that's what it needs. And I think if you have them turn against Bayley, it actually helps Bayley get over as a babyface, which I don't think she really needs the help. I think she's very good at what she does. But at the same time of helping her become the babyface, having Io Sky and Dakota Kai will always show that Bayley, as the heel, the leader of the group, was the problem. And I just think there's a lot of money in that. And I think if you're the WWE, you seriously have to entertain that idea because the women's tag team division is suffering. There's not enough legitimate tag teams. They are very legitimate. And if I'm WWE, I got to start creating storylines that are important for that division. This is one of those ways to really, truly get to that point, especially if you're going to have Shayna and Rousey end up taking those belts from Lita or whoever else. And at this point, Raquel and Liv Morgan are competing for those women's tag titles. So maybe by the time I do my live review for tonight's episode of Raw, we're going to see a whole different vision for this women's tag division. So that's good news. Guys, we got even better news. Vince McMahon appears to be out as creative. So as you guys know, this is where things get really intriguing because there's so many things being said right now at this stage about Vince McMahon's involvement in creative. And then it led me to speculate something. So if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, I highly recommend that you do. But basically, it was confirmed that Vince McMahon is not backstage for WWE Raw. And then, of course, Dave Meltzer had confirmed this news. Then some fans were like, well, hey, you know, what's really going on? Dave says, technically, Vince could be just working remotely, which is always a possibility. But I've had my own speculation that Vince McMahon, ever since he was taken off TV, to some sort of degree, has always been involved in WWE's creative. So my guess is that Vince McMahon has actually been running WWE remotely for the last several months, while Triple H was the one running the show. And of course, as you watched over time, you could kind of see those Vince-isms. I call them Vince-isms because those are things that Vince would typically do in a show. And you would see Triple H run the show creatively, better match qualities. We would see longer matches, less DQs. We would see more logic in the storytelling, but you would still see Vince-isms in the show. And it was very clear that Vince still had some sort of influence. So while Vince McMahon wouldn't be as head of creative, technically speaking, that is Triple H's title, Vince McMahon could always have some sort of influence on the card. Now, that's not a problem. I've never had a problem with Vince having some sort of creative influence. At the end of the day, it is his company. But ultimately, what I don't want is Vince literally going onto the show, changing the script 10 times during the show, things like that. And it looks like WWE is all in on this idea. Now, take this for what it's worth, but even Slice Wrestling has come out and they spoke to WWE sources, and Slice has actually broken some very big stories in the past. Now, I'm not saying it's the perfect source, but it's definitely broken some big stories in the past that were accurate. Now, if this is true, WWE sources believe that Triple H, based on all the success he has had, they're going to move forward with him running the show. And I think that's a really good idea. Everybody's been pretty impressed with Triple H's booking. Again, if Vince McMahon wants Omos to get booked, maybe the IWC doesn't like it, but listen to that reaction of Omos versus Lesnar at WrestleMania. It is up to Triple H and Bruce Pritchard and every other individual who's involved in creative to really make sure this works. And I have a very strong feeling, and maybe this is some optimism here, but if Vince McMahon was running the company remotely for the last several months, some of those rehirings, William Regal, Bronson Reed, some of those guys that came back into WWE would have had to been approved in some capacity. So I'm guessing that maybe Vince McMahon knew exactly what was happening at that point in time. And maybe not everything is all doom and gloom. And again, maybe it's just wishful thinking, but it appears that Triple H is running creative, not Vince McMahon. And now, guys, we can stop stressing about the silly, stupid shit, right? All right, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.